According to a Bankrate article, 99.9% of businesses in the US are small businesses. That is, businesses with 500 employees or less, according to the Small Business Administration, also known as the SBA. If you think that's interesting, wait until you hear the following. According to a study by CNBC, 23% of Americans think that real estate is the best way to build wealth, but only 12% make the purchase. Surprising, isn't it? Today, we will talk about two very popular investment topics in NOVARISE. Real estate, because many of you are here to learn ways to actually make the purchase of real estate, and businesses, because we know that many of you out there are business owners.
Today will be an open conversation about business and investments.
And with that, there's the first question about business, and it's related to social media. As you all know, social media is everywhere, not just on the platforms, but it's proven to be essential for businesses. In fact, a business without a website or any kind of social media presence, call it Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, or TikTok, it's considered obsolete at this point. Like, if you don't have anything in social media, chances are you're no longer cool anymore, right? Now, with that, I have a question for you, because with so much variety in terms of different social media platforms, what would you recommend the business owners? Because usually they're already wearing many hats, and now you're going to have to add to the equation different platforms. What would you recommend them to do, if they should even start at all?
First of all, it's very, very essential to start an online presence. Like, it could be your website, it could be social media, your own Google reviews, because you need to put yourself in the customer's shoes. What are they doing when they want to go to your services? It's not like they already know about your services. You need to let them know where you are at. So the first thing that
what do you do?
And what do you do? Correct. So the first thing a customer is going to do is that they're going to go to a platform. I personally love YouTube. As you can see, we're creating these videos, and this is where you found us. And it's very important to pick one platform mainly. It could be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. It's only up to you and to your business, because each business is going to be different. Maybe for your business that is about fitness, maybe you can go to Instagram and you're going to find customers there. But I love YouTube because it's a search engine. So whenever a customer goes, and this is me putting in my customer shoes, for example, I'm selling this cell phone, right? The first thing me as a customer that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to YouTube and type, like, what are the new features of this iPhone 14? Like, what's the price on this iPhone? When is it going to be released? And it's very, very important to create good content about the information that you're about to sell, because if you want people to buy your products, first of all, you need to provide good information. And what's good information is maybe you're adding new context about a certain topic. You're adding more images, more videos about explaining a certain topic that probably nobody else have talked about. And it's very important. That's kind of like what differentiates good content versus bad content.
In other words, adding that additional icing on the cake, so to speak. Like, what is it that you're providing that is unknown by everyone else? And that's how you manage to stand out. I mean, you teach what people need to know and learn about you or your services, but then you give them something extra as well, correct?
Correct. And just to add more to the topic, for example, if you're a business, chances are that you have a lot of questions that your customer is asking you. For example,
FAQs? For
example, if you're a realtor, people are asking you, what's an FHA? What's a loan? What's a mortgage? You can create videos about these topics, and instead of you repeating yourself over and over to these clients, I'm sure it's going to get tiring to a certain point.
And also time consuming,
and it's costing you a lot of money. So every time a customer asks you this question, you can just like record that video, put it in YouTube, and just send them a link to that video. And not only you're receiving traffic to the new YouTube channel, you're also cultivating a new audience on YouTube, and that's very, very important. So you can get started on that way. Now, I have a question for you, Lucelia. What's the number one skill an entrepreneur or business owner should have?
I will say it's actually two, not just one.
Two?
The first one would be the ability to sell, because I mean, businesses exist to make profit, right? You need to make profit. Otherwise, how are you going to pay your team? How are you going to pay for your inventory? How are you going to pay for the rent of the place? Even if you work from home, you still need money to pay for the internet and any assistant that you might need within your company. And when I talk about sales, I'm not talking about the pushy salesman, the one that pushes, and you have to buy from me. No, I'm talking about the educative way to sell. Like you mentioned earlier, the best way to sell is by teaching your customer about a product, what this has to offer, how is it going to resolve their needs. More than just the feature that it has, try to explain how that feature is going to make their lives better, more pleasant, because they're acquiring something for a reason, because they're experiencing a pain. So your job is to educate them and explain them how whatever is it that you have to offer, call it a product or a service, is going to remove or ease that pain for them. And the second skill, I will say it's extremely important, is the ability to communicate. And when I talk about communication, I talk about being firm in what you need and not afraid of saying what you need to do. Because when you're a leader in a business, people are already coming to you for answers, for solutions, for guidance. And if you're so concerned about what other people might think about you because you might offend them, look, you're in the wrong line of business. And if they do get offended, they're also in the wrong line of business, because everyone gets together in the business to get things done. With that, I'm not implying that you should be rude to your staff or to treat them without respect. On the contrary, you treat them with respect, but you're stern in what you are expecting. And things don't end there. When it comes to communication, you also have to make sure that all lines of communications are open between your team members from top all the way to the bottom. I can't emphasize enough the amount of instances I have seen where the leader communicates something and by the time it gets to the person on the bottom, it's a complete different message. So there's a lot of disconnect in between. So make sure that those lines of communications are open so that everyone in your team is on the same page and understands what is it that you're trying to achieve. And the clearer you are with your communication, the faster and more efficient you're going to get to your goals.
And speaking of communication, how can you be a good communicator?
I will say that the best way to communicate is, once again, educating. And by that, I mean, think about your end goal. What is it that you want to achieve? And then think about the steps that your team is going to need to do or you need to do in order to achieve that goal. And so your ability to break down those steps, that's what's going to make you a good leader. So for example, I've seen instances in where some business owners go out to their team and say, well, I need you to sell me 100,000 pieces of this product. Whatever, right? I mean, 100,000 pieces of products, but who should they go out to? Who should the sales team reach out to? To every business out there? To everyone doing cold call? Or is there a strategy in specific, maybe a type of consumer that you know it's more likely to want to buy your product? Because even if your product is the best in the market, it doesn't mean that everyone can afford it, and it doesn't mean that everybody will need it. So by you being able to delegate to the team appropriately and giving them the proper instructions as to what is it that you want to achieve. Well, I want to sell 100,000 pieces of this product, and I think that ideal client will be someone who is in this niche or someone who's in this business, and I need you to start off with them first. If you do find out other candidates that will be a good suit for this type of product, feel free to suggest that, but I want you to get, so that way they have a starting point. It saves you time. And it saves your team a lot of frustration. And remember, time equals money. If your team has no sense of direction and they're scrambling all over the place trying to find a sell, yeah, they might get lucky and they might find a sell here and there. But is it sustainable, right? Your team might get burned out. So that's usually what I try to adapt when we're communicating with our team. I always try to think about what's the end goal here. And once I get that end goal clear and I have a sense of direction, then I try to guide them. And if I don't have the sense of direction, then I work with the team to try to get that direction and nail it down together.
Something that I see very frequently in the way she communicates is that she uses very, very simple language in terms of words, the way you communicate. So that's what I love about how you communicate to all the people here watching.
I mean, the simple, the better. The last thing you want to do is to sound smart. Like, who cares whether you sound smart? You're going to piss people off. You're going to piss your customer off and the business owners. Nobody wants to feel dumb or not knowledgeable. And the last thing you should be doing as a leader is to make your team feel any less. So the simpler you can communicate things, the less the room for misinterpretations, the less the room that you're allowing for errors, because you're being clean and straightforward with your choice of words.
And the more sales that you most likely are going to have, because if you're using simple language, chances are you're explaining good the product in a very simple way, which anyone can understand.
Mm-hmm. Now, my turn to ask you a question.
Yes.
Let's talk about mentorship, right? As business leaders, we need to learn how to be good mentors, good teachers to our staff, people who look up to us. And the goal with being a good mentor is that you can actually create a team that is self-sufficient, who's independent, and can become an extension of who you are. So that way you can delegate certain tasks to them and you can continue to focus on the growth of the company. So tell me, Anthony, how could you be a good teacher or a good mentor?
The only way that you can be a good mentor or teacher for your teammates, for your team overall, is that if you want their success. And I'm not talking about just like business success. I'm talking about their personal success, because even though you're hiring them for your business, they also have their own needs and they also have their own goals that's not necessarily related to your company. So by you as a leader, whenever you're hiring someone, the first thing that you want to ask them is like, what are your goals? Not only for our business, because I'm sure they're going to sell you a beautiful story, but what are their goals for their own life? And if you as a business owner, as a leader, can help them achieve their goals, they're going to stay with you the longest time possible. I'm not guaranteeing this, but we found in our company that if we help our teammates to achieve their goals, they definitely stay with us longer.
Yeah, and this is something that some business owners seem to miss, because they tend to think that whatever's personal and business should not mix. And I agree with that. But ultimately, people work in your company. So there's that human component. And if they're not happy personally, chances are they're going to bring that unhappiness into the workplace. I mean, just look at, for example, somebody who might have experienced a death in the family or a divorce or something that might have disrupted the natural flow of that family dynamic at home. And chances are you're going to see that in the company. So that's just on the simplest term. Imagine if your team member doesn't feel fulfilled, as a person or professionally. So try to understand what their needs are, because the happier they are in their personal life, chances are they're going to bring that happiness into that workplace, and not be so afraid that, if I coach them or teach them, they're just going to leave the company. You really cannot guarantee that. They're either going to stay or they're going to leave. But if they leave, you want them to leave happy. You don't want a rogue employee leaving you a big mess when they leave, right?
Correct.
So those are the things that we try to keep in mind and nurture. And in our case, we've noticed that even if they go on and they learn other things that are outside of what's required in the business, it always comes back bringing value anyways, because we either end up taking on a new project or we end up doing something else, that specific skill that our team member happened to learn in whatever workshop they were doing, they ended up bringing it into our company and ended up adding value to us ultimately.
Yep. The only thing I have to say is that don't be afraid that they're going to learn more. In fact, be grateful that they are going to learn more, because if they learn more, that means that they're going to go to a new stage, to a new level. And if you're here as a business owner and they are there, you obviously want them to come here, and that's going to push you even more to become a better leader and keep learning and evolving as a person.
I mean, sometimes you do want your team member to be better than you. I mean, that's why you bring in the expert, you bring in consultants, because they know more and now they're teaching you. So I think it's kind of like a retroactive way to feed the dynamic, the work dynamic and the growth of the company as well.
Now let's transition into real estate. We know that you have a lot of properties, 24 properties. I'm sure that's a lot of transactions that you need to manage, books that you need to manage, and also cash flow that you need to manage, and also team as well. How do you do all of that?
Well, I'll have to say it all goes back to the team, right? Fortunately, I have an excellent power team who happens to be an extension of who I am. So for example, my properties are located in Florida and in Alabama. And so I do have my property managers on site, my boots on ground, who swim by the property regularly, and they check to make sure everything is okay, that the tenants have everything they need, or if there's anything that needs repair, to communicate that to me immediately, because the longer you sit on a repair, the more expensive it will become, because the damage will get worse and worse over time. So that's in terms of like managing the tenants and making sure everything is running properly. In terms of cash flow or rent collection, my property managers, they do that themselves as well. They make sure they collect the rent at the beginning of each month, and all I have to do is just to check my bank accounts to make sure that the rent has arrived on time. And in terms of managing the books, we have a great team of accountants. They're Dana y Asociados, and I do check my books on a quarterly basis. I check the numbers, make sure it's all right. And because I've been doing it for a couple of years now, like I know exactly where to look for and what stands out and what not. And I'm able to identify those transactions that are a little off, and I contact my accountant immediately if something needs to happen. Which brings me to the point of education. It's very important you learn how to read the books correctly, and because that not only allows you to see what's happening within your company, but it also allows you to see what expenses are necessary, what are not necessary, and then just simply shuffle things around or cut down expenses whenever they're not needed, and see other opportunities for growth to increment that cash flow coming your way. And that's something that we actually teach in our investment program as well.
That's right. So you mentioned something about a 3 months, like a regular check on your books. Is that kind of like the magic number for you? Because I've seen other business owners, they only check their books maybe at the end of the year.
I mean, I like to check them every 3 months because I don't have the time. There are other businesses where I do check them on a monthly basis because I just need to stay more on top of them. But for real estate, since they're somewhat a passive way of investing for me, I find that not everything changes from month to month. And if they do, my property manager will be the first one to let me know. And so I don't really find the need to do that. But that will be depending on the level of comfort of each and one of you. I mean, some people prefer to check that on a monthly basis. I do check the bank accounts on a monthly basis, but the books, the accounting books, I do that every quarter. And I mean, like you said, some people wait until the very end of the year to check their books, which is a big no-no, because the last thing you want is to be running around on December 31st trying
behind
to see,
the accountant.
trying to see what else can you put in as an expense or something. And you definitely don't want to get caught up in that situation. So now, speaking of investments, I want to ask a question to you regarding that. How do you see investments nowadays?
Well, I love investing. And the way I see investments now is completely different from before. Because before, the way I was investing, it was like $1,000 here, maybe $500 there. But now, since we have an active business, and this business of NOVARISE takes about 90% of our time, it definitely takes a lot of time from us. So when I'm looking to do an investment, I like to do it big. Like I like to do it like 100,000, 200,000, and mainly invest in real estate, because it's a way of kind of like protect yourself for inflation, which I find it in a very passive way, like you said, to invest in real estate.
So if I understand you correctly, you rather invest a large sum of money into a type of asset because you don't have time to manage other smaller investments. You want to do a large lump sum, and then you expect that return to be relatively high according to the amount of money you put in, just because 90% of your time it's gone towards NOVARISE. So that means you only have a 10% of your time available to do other things.
Correct.
And that includes investing.
And I think I call it as investment But what I'm looking for is just protecting myself against inflation. I don't want the money sitting in my bank account just losing value every single time. I want to put it to work. Nowadays, I'm looking for ways to invest my money in a stable investment and not something like the stock market, because it's very volatile. So that's kind of like the way I'm investing now my money. But now the question now is for you. How do you look at investments, and what are you doing right now to protect your money?
I mean, I view opportunities to invest like there's something that they are in front of you every single day, because ultimately you create them. I mean, if you were to wait for the perfect moment to invest, there would never be such a time, because either the interest rates are too expensive or the houses are too expensive, or if the interests are low, maybe you lost your job, or if the interest rates are low, maybe you don't have the money. So I think that the best time to invest is whenever you are ready, and it could be any day, every day, right? So you create that opportunity and you make an informed and educated decision based on numbers, not on your emotions, because that's like the worst thing you can do, like buying something because you like it or because you see yourself in it. And that's great, but it's gonna create a temporary joy and a long time of frustrations and anxiety if you didn't run the numbers properly, because then you're gonna get into an asset and where you're gonna be indebted with, and chances are you may or may not be able to pay it off in the long term. So it's very important that you educate yourself the correct way to do those investments the proper way. The only thing I could say that I have changed over time is that I became more conservative. And the reason why is because I've noticed massive fluctuations in prices and home prices, especially since after the pandemic. I mean, for those who have been following our channel for quite some time, have realized that if you bought before the pandemic, you realize that your property appreciated somewhat close to the double digits, if not the double digits. And while that's great for equity and to do cash out or HELOC, that's not so great in property taxes. So what's gonna wind up happening is that your property taxes are gonna go up and you're gonna have to pay more money for property taxes. Or if you have them included as part of your mortgage, as part of the escrow account, that means that your mortgage monthly payments are gonna go up. Now, I wanna make something very clear here. Once you lock down on a fixed rate on a mortgage, your interest rate and your principal, meaning the money that you need to pay back, are not gonna change. But there are two factors in your mortgage payments that could change over time, and that is the cost of insurance and the property taxes. So the higher the value of your property, the higher the property taxes will be. And the older your property, the more expensive your insurance will be, which means that over the years, it's more likely that you can see an increase in your mortgage payments, even though you have a locked rate, because of what I just mentioned, the insurance and the property taxes. So I learned over the years that it's very important to keep a cushion in your bank account. Those are called cash reserves for any event that happens. Call it an emergency or call it an increase in your mortgage payment. And at least you don't have to worry about moving money at the very last minute. You already have a cushion there and you know that you have that mortgage payment covered with a cash reserve.
Now, speaking about the numbers and how to run them in a profitable way for your real estate portfolio, we invite you to our real estate webinar where you're gonna learn how to run those numbers
the right way. I'll see you in the webinar and possibly see you as part of our investment course. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you. Take care.